In the late afternoon, when I was tidying my bedroom, I heard the door creak behind me. I turned around, and Alden stood at the doorway, gazing at the object in my hands. My heart ceased to beat. How do I articulate this? The object was anything but harmless. It was a giant, vividly colored toy. Well, that could not be overlooked in any civilized discourse. I had retrieved it from the drawer to clean the back of the cabinet without giving it any thought. I believed I had cured the door. Alden was my 23-year-old stepchild. He was not expected to be home yet. He worked at a nearby brewery and typically socialized with friends late after his shifts. Yet there he was, tall and slender, his black hair cascading into his amused blue eyes. "What is that?" he inquired, his tone oscillating between inquisitive and playful, causing my face to flush intensely. I relinquished the item as if it had scalded me and seized the next object, a throw pillow off the bed, to conceal it. "It is not your concern," I mumbled, experiencing a constriction in my throat. I noted that his demeanor remained unchanged. Rather, he leaned against the doorframe, his curiosity intensifying. "You need not feign embarrassment," he said with a little chuckle. "I have indeed done so." I had never encountered anything of that nature before. It made me wish to retreat into obscurity. The audacity of this individual to stand there as remarkable, unperturbed and nonchalant as my life spiraled into chaos. I compelled a chuckle, eager to alleviate the scrutiny. Alden said seriously, "Tend to your own affairs. Your presence is unwarranted." However, he remained still for a few periods. Quiet enveloped us, dense and nearly intolerable. He no longer gazed at the pillow in my hands. His attention was directed towards me. His stare was distinct, without the customary relaxed or joking expressions to which I was accustomed. This one persisted excessively and with great intensity. It was as though he had removed a layer of the persona he believed I embodied and discovered a completely other individual. I had an unusual sensation, a spark of warmth deep within my chest, followed by a piercing stab of remorse. This was erroneous. This was unequivocally erroneous. I was his stepmother, for heaven's sake. I was married to his father. I negated and disrupted the stillness. Alden only shrugged, raising his hands in false capitulation. He acknowledged with a casual tone, although before departing, he cast one more glance at me, a gaze that intensified my already tumultuous thoughts. As the door shut behind him, I seated myself on the bed's edge, the pillow firmly held to my breast, my heart beating. I was unable to return the item to the drawer. An imperceptible change had occurred in the atmosphere between us, and despite my efforts to disregard it, I realized I would never perceive Alden in the same manner for the remainder of the evening. The moment lingered in my thoughts. I made an attempt. I prepared supper, organized the laundry, and sat with Victor on the couch while he browsed through classic westerns on the television. Yet Alden's delighted smile and the disconcerting glimmer in his eyes lingered in my mind. Victor scarcely acknowledged my preoccupation. It was inconsequential. He had been engrossed in his hobbies, gardening, woodworking, and crosswords for years since his retirement. I did not have any resentment against him for this. That would have been overly simplistic. Nonetheless, at times I perceived myself more as a resident caregiver than a spouse. I briefly observed Alden's shadow as he traversed his room down the hall. I discerned a subtle hum, the sound of music emanating from his door, a deep bass line incongruent with the surrounding tranquility of the home, caused my heart to leap inexplicably. I redirected my focus to my husband, Victor, who was quietly sleeping, his chin inclined towards his chest. He had succumbed to slumber in his recliner once again, with the television continuing to drone. I contemplated rousing him, then questioned the purpose of doing so. I stood and meandered toward the kitchen, appreciating a brief bit of alone time. But my seclusion was short-lived. Alden entered, his bare feet silent against the hardwood floor. He wore a faded t-shirt and sweatpants. His hair tousled like he'd just run his hands through it. "Hey," he said casually, opening the fridge and grabbing a bottle of water. "You're up late?" "I could say the same about you," I replied, keeping my tone light. He smiled, leaning against the counter. "Just unwinding, you know. It's not easy being under this roof sometimes." The comment made me pause. "What do you mean?" He shrugged, but there was a hint of something serious in his expression. "It's nothing, just living here again, I guess. I feel like I don't fit in anymore." I softened at that. Despite everything, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of maternal concern. "It's just temporary, Alden. You'll figure things out. You're smart and capable. You'll land on your feet." "Thanks, Melina," he said, his voice quieter now. "I appreciate that." For a moment, we stood in silence in the kitchen. The space between us felt smaller somehow. The space between us shrinking, even though neither of us moved. His eyes lingered on mine, and I felt that same flicker of warmth in my chest again. I cleared my throat and busied myself wiping the counter, desperate to break whatever spell was threatening to take hold. But Alden wasn't finished. "About earlier," he started, his tone turning playful again. "You don't have to be embarrassed. We're all humans, right?" My hand froze mid-wipe, and I turned to him, trying to keep my composure. "Alden, let's not talk about that, all right? It was an accident, and it's not worth bringing up again, okay?" he said, raising his hands in surrender. But there was a teasing edge in his smile that made my stomach flip. He walked past me then, close enough that I caught a faint whiff of his cologne. I didn't turn around, but I could feel his presence behind me for a moment before he finally left the kitchen. That night, as I lay in bed next to Victor, my mind raced. What was happening to me? To us? To this house? I'd always been able to maintain clear boundaries that weren't meant to be crossed, but Alden had a way of bending those lines, even when he wasn't trying to. And the worst part was, I wasn't sure I wanted him to stop. The next morning, I tried to act normal. I prepared breakfast like I always did, eggs, toast, and coffee for Victor, smoothie for myself. Alden was the last to come into the kitchen as usual, his hair still damp from a shower. He greeted Victor with a casual morning and me with a warm smile that made my pulse quicken. The three of us sat at the table, the clinking of silverware and occasional snippets of conversation filling the air. But underneath it all, I could feel the tension. Every time Alden's hand brushed mine as we passed the salt or refilled coffee, felt deliberate. I caught him watching me more than once, his gaze steady and unreadable. Victor, of course, noticed none of this. After breakfast, Alden offered to help me clean up. Normally, he would have disappeared into his room or out with friends, so his offer caught me off guard. "You don't have to," I said, stacking plates in the sink. "I want to," he replied. Grabbing a dish rag, we worked in silence for a while, but the air between us felt charged. At one point, I reached for a glass at the same time he did, and our hands collided. Neither of us pulled away immediately. "You're different," he said quietly, his voice just above a whisper. "What do you mean?" I asked, my throat suddenly dry. He hesitated, his eyes searching mine. "I don't know. You don't act like other women your age." I laughed nervously, stepping back to create some distance. "Well, that's flattering, I suppose." "It's not just that," he continued, his tone serious now. "You're real. You actually listen. You see people." The sincerity in his voice took me off guard. I didn't know what to say, so I turned back to the dishes. But as I scrubbed, I felt his presence close behind me. My heart was racing again, and I hated how much I wanted him to stay there. Before I could gather my thoughts, Victor's voice called from the living room. "Melina, where's my crossword book?" The moment shattered, and Alden stepped back, giving me a small, knowing smile. "I'll let you get back to him," he said, voice light again. As he walked away, I felt a mix of relief and longing. I knew I was playing with fire, but some part of me couldn't help but reach for the heat. That afternoon, I busied myself with errands, anything to keep my mind occupied. But when I returned home, I found Alden sitting on the porch steps, staring out at the yard. He looked lost in thought, a far cry from the confident young man I was used to seeing. "Hey," I said softly as I approached. He looked up, his face breaking into a small smile. "Hey, everything all right?" He hesitated before answering, "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" "About life, I guess. Where I'm headed, where I should be headed? I sat down beside him, keeping a safe distance, but close enough that I could feel the warmth of his presence. "You're young, Alden. You don't have to have it all figured out yet." "Maybe," he said, his gaze still fixed on the yard. Then, after a pause, he added, "Do you ever feel like you're meant for something different? Like you're trapped in the wrong story?" His words hit close to home than I cared to admit. I wanted to comfort him, to tell him everything would be okay, but the truth was I didn't believe that myself. Instead, I placed a hand on his shoulder and squeezed gently. "You're not trapped," I said, hoping he wouldn't notice the tremor in my voice. For a moment, he covered my hand with his, and the gesture felt impossibly intimate. I pulled away quickly, but the damage was done. Another line crossed, another boundary blurred, and I wasn't sure I had the strength to stop it anymore. That evening, the sky turned dark with an oncoming storm, and the air hung heavy, as though the world itself was waiting for something to happen. Victor had gone to bed early, as he often did, complaining about an aching shoulder. I had settled into the living room with a book in hand, but I couldn't focus. The storm outside mirrored the one building within me, something restless, unpredictable, and dangerous. Alden was in the kitchen, the sound of the fridge opening and closing carrying through the quiet house. I could hear the faint clink of glass as he poured himself a drink. Moments later, he appeared in the doorway of the living room, holding 2 glasses of whiskey. "Whiskey?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. I blinked, caught off guard. "I don't usually drink this late." "Well, maybe tonight's an exception," he said with a grin, handing me a glass without waiting for an answer. I hesitated, but took the cold glass, pressing against my palm. Alden sank into the armchair across from me, stretching his legs out casually. The lamp beside me cast a warm glow across his face, highlighting the sharp angles of his jaw and the faint shadow of stubble on his chin. "What are you reading?" he asked, nodding toward the book in my lap. "Just something light," I replied, holding it up briefly. "Nothing exciting." He smirked. "I find that hard to believe." I laughed softly, taking a sip of the whiskey. It burned, but it was a welcome distraction from the tension that had been building all day. For a while, we sat in comfortable silence, the storm outside growing louder. But then he spoke again, his voice is low. "Can I ask you something?" I glanced at him warily. "Depends on what it is." He swirled the liquid in his glass, his eyes fixed on it as though he were gathering his thoughts. "Do you ever feel stuck?" His question startled me. It was eerily similar to the one he'd asked earlier on the porch, but now there was a different weight to it. "Sometimes," I admitted. My voice was quieter than I intended. He looked up then, his eyes met mine. "You don't seem like someone who should be stuck. You're too alive for that." I felt my cheeks flush, and I looked away, setting my glass down on the coffee table. "Alden, you shouldn't say things like that." "Why not? It's true." His words hung in the air, thick with unspoken meaning. I stood abruptly, needing to put space between us. "I think it's time we called it a night," I said, avoiding his gaze. But before I could leave the room, the power went out. The sudden darkness was disorienting, and I froze mid-step. I muttered, my voice shaking. "It's just the storm," Alden said calmly. I heard him move up, the faint shuffle of his feet on the carpet. "Hold on, I'll find a flashlight." I heard him move closer, the faint rustle of fabric as he passed me. Then his hand brushed against mine in the dark, and I sucked in a sharp breath. "Sorry," he murmured, but he didn't pull away. His hand lingered warm against mine, and the air between us seemed to shift. I didn't move. I couldn't. My heart was pounding so loudly, I was certain he could hear it. "Melina," Alden said softly, his voice barely more than a whisper. I turned toward him, even though I couldn't see him in the dark, but I could feel his presence, his warmth, his steady breathing. And then his hands slid up to my wrist, holding it gently. "This is a bad idea," I said, my voice trembling. "I know," he replied, but he didn't let go. The first crack of lightning lit up the room for a brief second, and in that moment, I saw his face, earnest, vulnerable, and impossibly close. And then he kissed me. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, as though he was waiting for me to push him away. But I didn't. Instead, I found myself leaning into him, my hands gripping his shirt, as though he were the only solid thing in a spinning world. When the light flickered back on and we broke apart, both of us breathing hard, at the reality of what we had done. The reality of what we had done hit me like a wave, and I stepped back, my hands trembling. "This can't happen," I said, shaking my head. Alden didn't argue. He just stood there, his expression unreadable. "I know," he said again, his voice steady. But the damage was done. The next few days were a blur of stolen glances and unspoken words. I avoided Alden as much as I could, throwing myself into chores and errands, anything to keep my mind occupied. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't forget the feel of his lips on mine, or the way his hand had lingered on my wrist. One evening, as I was folding laundry in the guest room, Alden appeared in the doorway. "We need to talk," he said, his voice firm. I didn't look up. "There's nothing to talk about." "Yes, there is." He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. I sighed, setting the laundry down and finally meeting his gaze. "Alden, whatever this is, it has to stop. It's wrong." "Is it?" he asked in his tone challenging. "Because it doesn't feel wrong to me." His words sent a shiver down my spine, but I forced myself to stay calm. "You don't understand. If Victor ever found out—" "He won't," Alden interrupted. "And even if he did, do you really think he'd care? He barely notices you anymore." His words stung, partly because they were true, but that didn't make them right. "This isn't about him,"
I said, my voice rising, "is about us. About the fact that this, whatever this is, can't happen. It's not just wrong, it's impossible." Alden took a step closer. His eyes locked on mine. "Why? Because you're afraid of what people might think? Because you're afraid of what you might think?" I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. Melina continued, his voice softer now. "I'm not trying to make this harder for you, but I can't pretend I don't feel something for you, and I don't think you." I felt tears pricking at the corners of my eyes, and I looked away from him. "I don't understand," I whispered. "Then explain it to me," he said, his tone pleading. But I couldn't explain the war raging inside me, the guilt, the fear, the longing. So instead, I shook my head and pushed past him, leaving the room without another word. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of Victor's breathing beside me. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, none of which I could untangle. At some point, I got up and went to the kitchen, hoping for a glass of water would help calm my nerves. But as I stepped into the hallway, I froze. Alden's door was open, and he was standing there, leaning against the doorframe as though he'd been waiting for me. "Can't sleep?" he asked, his voice low. I shook my head, unable to find my voice for a long moment. We just stared at each other, the silence between us heavy and charged. And then, without thinking, I turned and walked back to my room, closing the door behind me. But even as I lay back down, I knew this wasn't over. Whatever this was, this impossible, dangerous thing between us, it wasn't going away. And I wasn't sure I wanted it. The next time it happened, there wasn't a storm to blame, nor a flickering light to hide behind. This time, it was deliberate. It started in the laundry room, of all places. I was pulling warm towels from the dryer, the mundane rhythm of folding them offering some kind of escape. The house was quiet. Victor had gone to a friend's house to watch a game, and I thought I had the place to myself. Then I heard the soft creak of the floorboards behind me. "Always working," Alden said, his voice light but laced with something I couldn't quite place. I didn't turn around. "Someone has to," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. He laughed softly. "Fair enough, but don't you ever get tired of it?" "Tired of what? Taking care of everything? Taking care of everyone? When's the last time someone took care of you?" His words cut through me like a knife. I turned then, clutching a folded towel against my chest like a shield. "Alden, I don't think this is a conversation we should be having." "Why not?" he asked, leaning casually against the doorframe. He looked so at ease, so unbothered. But his eyes told a different story. They were sharp, searching, and impossibly focused on me. "Because," I said, my voice faltering, "it's not appropriate." He repeated as though testing the word. "That's not the same as honest, though, is it?" I wanted to argue, to shut him down before he could say anything else that would make this worse. But before he could, he stepped closer, closing the distance between us. "You don't have to pretend with me, Melina," he said softly. "I see you. I see the way you carry this house, the way you keep everything together while everyone else just takes. Don't you think you deserve something for yourself?" My throat tightened and I shook my head, stepping back until I felt the edge of the counter against my hips. "Alden, whatever this is, it has to stop." He reached out then. His hand brushed against mine. It was such a small, simple gesture, but it felt like the ground beneath me was shifting. "Tell me you don't feel it too," he said, his voice barely more than a whisper. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out, because I couldn't tell him that. I couldn't lie to him or to myself. And then, just like that night in the living, he kissed me. But this time, I didn't stop him. The days that followed were a blur of stolen moments and whispered secrets. We were careful, or at least we thought we were. Alden was good at finding excuses to linger in the same room as me, offering to help with dinner, fixing a broken cabinet door, even volunteering to run errands with me. At first it was thrilling, the rush of something forbidden, but the reality of our situation weighed heavily on me. I knew it couldn't last. I knew it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. Crashing down. One afternoon, as I was putting away groceries, Alden came up behind me and wrapped his arms around me. I stiffened, glancing toward the doorway to make sure no one was there. "Alden," I hissed, trying to pull away. "Six could walk in any minute." "He's at the hardware store," Alden said. His voice was calm and relaxed, but I couldn't relax anymore. The paranoia was starting to eat away at me. Every time Victor looked at me, I wondered if he knew. Every time Bethany, our nosy neighbor, waved at me from across the street, I felt like she could see right through me. "We need to talk," said Alden, turning to face me. "About what?" he asked, his expression unreadable. "About this. About us." His jaw tightened, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of anger in his eyes. "What about us?" "This has to stop," I said, forcing the words out. "It's too risky. It's not fair to Victor." "Victor?" repeated Alden, his voice rising. "What about fair? To you? Do you even hear yourself? You're so dizzy worrying about him that you don't even think about what you want." "What I want doesn't matter," I snapped. "It's not about me." Alden shot back. "You deserve to be happy, Melina. You deserve to be with someone who actually sees you." His words hung in the air, heavy and unrelenting. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but I couldn't, because deep down, I knew he was right. The breaking point came a few weeks later when Victor had invited Bethany and her husband over for dinner, and I was doing my best to play the role of the perfect hostess. But Bethany's sharp eyes seemed to be on me all night, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she knew something. After dinner, as I was cleaning up in the kitchen, Bethany cornered me. "You've been awfully distracted lately," she said, her tone casual but her eyes probing. "Just busy," I replied, forcing a smile. "You know how it is." She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "Does Victor know?" "No." I froze, my heart pounding. My chest. "No? What?" She shrugged, her expression unreadable. "Whatever's going on with you and Alden." I felt like the ground had been ripped out under me. I don't know what you're talking about," I said, my voice shaking. Bethany smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Just be careful, Melina. Secrets has a way of coming out." That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop playing Bethany's words in my mind. I felt trapped, caught between two worlds that couldn't coexist. The next morning, Alden found me in the garden, pulling weeds with more force than necessary. "You're avoiding me," he said, his voice steady but tinged with frustration. "I'm trying to protect us," I replied, not looking up.
Protect us from what? He asked, stepping closer. From this blowing up in our faces, I said, standing and wiping my hands on my jeans. Alden knows, Alden. She knows. He frowned, his expression darkening. How could she know? I don't know, but she does, I said, voice rising. And if she tells Victor? She won't, he said firmly. You don't know that, I snapped. You don't understand how dangerous this is. Alden grabbed my hand, his grip strong but not painful. What I understand is that I don't want to lose you.
The raw emotion in his voice caught me off guard, and for a moment, I didn't know what to say. You won't, I said finally, my voice barely more than a whisper. But we have to be careful, for both our sakes. The days that followed were tense. Bethany didn't say anything to Victor, at least not that I knew of, but the weight of her suspicion hung over me like a cloud. Alden tried to reassure me, but even he seemed more on edge than usual. And then, one evening, Victor came home earlier than expected. I was in the laundry room with Alden, the two of us standing closer than we should have been, when we heard the front door open. We sprang apart like guilty teenagers. "Victor!" called my name, his voice carrying through the house, and "Here!" I replied, my voice steady despite the panic rising in my chest. Victor appeared in the doorway, his eyes sweeping over the room. For a moment, I thought he was going to say something, but then he just nodded. "Dinner is almost ready," I said, quickly. He left without another word, but the look he gave me lingered long after he was gone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the moment in the laundry room, the way Victor's eyes had lingered on me just a second too long. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to end it. Whatever this was between Alden and me, it felt too big, too consuming to simply walk away from. But deep down, I knew the storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. It started with Victor coming home unexpectedly early. But this time, it wasn't just the timing that caught me off guard. His face was tight, his expression unreadable as he stepped into the house and set his briefcase down with a deliberate thud. "Alden!" Victor called, his voice sharp enough to make my stomach drop. Alden appeared in the hallway moments later, his casual demeanor contrasting Victor's obvious tension. "What's up?" he asked, leaning against the wall, hands in his pockets. Victor's eyes narrowed. "We need to talk. Now." The tone in his voice left no room for argument. Alden glanced at me briefly, concern flickering in his eyes, before following Victor into the living room. I stood frozen in the kitchen, my heart pounding. I couldn't hear their words at first, just the low rumble of Victor's voice and the occasional quieter responses from Alden. But as their conversation escalated, the words became clear. "I know what's been going on," Victor said, his voice like ice. "What are you talking about?" Alden replied, his tone calm but guarded. "Don't play dumb with me," Victor snapped. "I've seen the way you look at her, the way she looks at you. Do you think I'm blind?" My blood ran cold. He knew. Or at least he suspected enough to confront Alden. "Victor, you're imagining things," Alden said, his voice steadier than I thought possible. "There's nothing going on." "Don't lie to me," Victor roared, and the sound of something, a glass maybe, shattering. I couldn't stay hidden any longer. I stepped into the doorway, my hands trembling. Victor stopped. Both men turned to me, their expressions polar opposites. Victor's was a mix of anger and betrayal, while Alden held something closer to defiance. "Melina?" Victor said, his voice quieter now, but no less dangerous. "Tell me the truth. Is there something going on between you two?" I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. My silence was answer enough. Victor laughed, bitterly, running a hand through his thinning hair. "I knew it," he said, his voice cracking. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew. "Victor, please," I began, stepping closer. He snapped, holding up a hand. "And don't try to explain it. There's nothing you can say that will make this okay."
The room fell into a tense silence, broken only by the sound of the clock ticking on the wall. Finally, Victor turned to Alden, his eyes blazing. "You're out," he said coldly. "Pack your things and leave tonight." Alden stood his ground, his jaw tightening. "I'm not going anywhere." "Yes, you are," Victor shot back. "You're not going to stay under my roof and disrespect me like this." "I think you should calm down," Alden said, his tone low but firm, which only made Victor angrier. He stepped closer to Alden, his fists clenched at his sides. "Don't tell me to calm down." "Stop it!" I shouted, stepping between them both. "Of you. Just stop." Victor turned to me, his eyes filled with hurt. "How could you, Melina?" he asked, his voice breaking. "After everything I've done for you." "I didn't mean for this to happen," I said, tears streaming down my face. I never wanted to hurt you." "Well, you did," he said bitterly. "And now I have to deal with the fact that my own wife and my son." He broke off, shaking his head. "I can't even say it." Alden reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I couldn't handle his touch. Not now. Not with Victor watching. "I think it's best if I leave," Alden said quietly. Victor stared at me, his face hardening. "You're not going anywhere," he said firmly. "This is my house. If anyone's leaving, it's him." "Victor," I began, but he cut me off. "No, I don't want to hear it," he said, his voice trembling with barely contained rage. "You've made your choice, Melina, and now you're going to live with the consequences." Alden left that night. He packed a bag without a word, his movements tense and mechanical. I followed him to the driveway, my heart breaking with every step. "I'm sorry," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. He turned to me, his expression softer than I expected. "This isn't over," he said, his voice steady. "You know that, right?" I nodded, but I didn't say anything, because as much as I wanted to believe him, I wasn't sure if it was true. As his car disappeared down the street, I felt an ache deep in my chest, a mix of guilt, loss, and something I couldn't quite name. The days that followed were unbearable. Victor barely spoke to me. His silence was more punishing than any words could have been. I threw myself into household tasks, desperate to keep busy, but nothing could distract me from the emptiness I felt. And then, a week later, the letter arrived. It was from Alden, no return address, just my name written in his familiar handwriting. I opened it with trembling hands, my heart pounding as I unfolded the paper. "Melina, I know things are complicated right now, but I need you to know that I meant what I said. This isn't over. I don't care what anyone else thinks or says. I can't just walk away from you. I won't. When you're ready, I'll be waiting. Always." I read the letter 3 times, my hands shaking. Part of me wanted to tear it up, to burn it and pretend it never existed. But another part of me, one I didn't want to admit to, clung to his words like a lifeline. That night, I tucked the letter into the back of my dresser drawer, hiding it away like a secret I wasn't ready to share with the world. Because deep down, I knew Alden was right. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot.